thanks for being here. As you know, I am a nerd, so I have a lot of deep dive discussions with people, and some of those people let me share some chat time with you. We don't do introductions or big entry biography readings here. But check the caption because sometimes my guest wants or needs knowledge about what they're doing, and other times they want to share a story and not get public hate. Anyway, here we go. Let's hash it out.
Yeah, no, you can, I mean, it can be published if it's interesting. I just don't know that it would be. So the way I think about him, and this will be true for a lot of people, in a way it's true like for everyone, because so more generally, I don't like the idea of censoring people. I'd much rather prefer to have everybody's stuff on the table and then you can discuss it. So like I've done interviews that have been deleted and I don't like that because I would much rather them be out there and have people talk about what's wrong with it or what they want to challenge or where they are in disagreement. And then we could talk about it. So I feel the same way about this guy, Conrad Flynn. I just remembered that about him. So his experiences will be valuable, especially I mean, I feel like that about just about anyone with firsthand experience that we should be listening to what they have to say. I mean, and this is actually a good example. So my neighbor is Elizabeth Loftus. I know her. And so she's a very controversial person. And I understand that and very respectfully when it comes to survivors because of the stuff that she's been involved with and is affiliated with. But if you just cut me off, you don't get to find out what I know or what I've experienced or what I've experienced over time and come to know, which I want people to hear about because it helps, it adds to understanding. And so, especially like for me, based on my experiences, especially with my ex-wife, other experiences in Hollywood, a lot of it in thinking in retrospect, also in higher academia, higher education. And so, like, to just take that out means you don't know. And that's whether what I'm saying is true or not, or valid or not. It's better to have it out there. So I feel the same way about this person, Conrad Flynn, and anyone else. And I would and I would not want to take his testimony or what he says about what it was like for him off the table, especially as somebody with, firsthand. So he's talking about his life, his family. On the other hand, what I am saying is based on what I know and what I think is true. He came off a little bit funny when he was talking about some of the stuff that's associated with the occult and Satanism and some other stuff. It just seemed superficial, not particularly well informed. And it made me wonder what he was doing, like for instance, is Tucker Carlson platforming him? On the other hand, is he infiltrating Tucker Carlson, who's got what he thinks is an important message he's trying to get across? Yeah. Or is it neither one? I don't know. But
definitely. So I subscribed to him on Substack, and then I watched his interview with Billy Corgan, and it was a different vibe. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if I watched Tucker before or after. So Tucker was probably an interesting spin on things as a first watch for people to get a hold of who he was. And that makes perfect sense. I think whether you like somebody or not, or don't, or jive, or it doesn't make sense or not, I think what you said is 1,000% valid. Their firsthand experience needs to be heard because firsthand experience can't be made up. I mean, it can be made up, but you can see in the authenticity, to circle it back to those avatars. When someone is telling a story, you may not like it and you may not think it was right, or you may think they misunderstood a situation, but you can see an authenticity in the way that they tell a story and an intention. And I think that needs to be heard. And then everybody can siphon what they want and decide what is true and what is not. And it was interesting because he did come out of left field it came out of left field, never having been interviewed that I saw by anybody. And then all of a sudden he was everywhere. And, that does spark some people's responses as like, what the heck? So when you think about like really odd, he was interviewed on Billy Corgan's podcast, The Magnificent Others, I think is what it's called. And it's a very good podcast. I like his interview style. but I don't know anything about Billy Corgan other than the songs that I listened to, and he doesn't like those songs of his and gets mad about people that like those songs. So I definitely don't fit into his crew. And so
Well,
it's
he
funny.
goes back with Courtney Love quite a bit.
Did you watch their interview?
He interviewed her?
Yeah. So like last week it launched, or
No,
like
I
the
didn't.
it was like last week or 2 weeks ago it launched or something like that. And let me tell you, she opened it, and this is where I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'll publish this part in here, but I don't know if I trust Billy Corgan. I just think his interview style is wonderful, and what he knows is great, and it is what it is. And then all of a sudden she opens her interview and she's sitting there pretty and she's talking, and all of a sudden she goes, "You Mason, you Freemason, you Freemason, you." And then he said something else, and then they go on with their interview. And there were a couple other interesting like parts
I
where
haven't seen it.
You can see her kind of do like a Britney Spears type, like a disassociation moment. And I want to be as like nice about this as possible, because they were talking about a lot of the hate that Courtney gets. And I don't think she deserves a lot of the hate that she gets. And I have no idea what happened with her and Kurt. And so, like, I don't want to make any of those judgments. And so I can see 1,000% in the way she tells her stories, the way she talks, what she remembers and doesn't remember. And he remembers everything, and she remembers none of that. I can see that maybe she was a victim of a lot of this Monarch programming or MK discussion situations. And I don't think people give that credit when they see a clip. You know, they'll see a clip of her, or they'll see somebody spin a story about whatever. That's got to be hard to live under. I mean, that's got to be hard to live under.
Yeah, well, so when I think about her, I think about, well, here are the first things I think of is it seems like there's really good evidence that she was used in MK Ultra experiments, or that one of her parents was when she was like an infant or toddler. So that right there just puts her in a special category right off the bat. And I don't know exactly, like I don't have a deep, I haven't done a deep study of her. She talks about that, and it lines up. And more generally, she had a really, she was in difficult circumstances during her childhood, which I think even included coming into some money at some point, but mostly it was very difficult.
That was discussed too. You might like the interview. It was very interesting.
Yeah, no, I probably would. I don't trust Billy Corgan, just for what it's worth. Because part of it's because of how he's aligned with that Conrad Flynn guy and all of that stuff coming forward, and just generally this podcast. And even if I'm being honest, the fact that he was connected with Courtney Love that long ago, because, you know, people get handled by other people, and it makes me wonder about it. So I don't think she killed Kurt Cobain or any of that. I mean, I think they were completely messed up, and in her own way probably loved him or cared about him as much as she could, just like a lot of people did. So, you know, were fond of him. So, but anyway, whatever. I don't know the details about that. But I do know that she was an innocent child, and that she was abused in horrific ways. I know that much. Another thing I know about her is that she's very smart. So there's no question about that in my mind. And if people want to think otherwise, they can, but you just have to listen to her, and it comes across.
That is very true. And the same can be said about Billy Corgan, too. So if I do publish what I said earlier, it's not that I don't trust him. It's just the Freemason thing was nerve-wracking with her saying it and then her acting some ways. But I don't know. I did not know this until listening to a couple of his interviews and then researching him afterwards. I didn't know that he had a rough upbringing. I didn't know that his dad was abusive. I didn't know some of the things that his dad had said and how it shaped him. And when he became famous, what his dad said to him and stuff like that. So when we think about survivor stories and like how the public is, marketing is mind control, like I was under the impression that he was a rock star and he had some songs that were on the popular radio and then had some other stuff. And that was my impression. So that's not very deep considering he's a survivor. He had giant abuse. I don't know what he did. I don't know anything else.
And I didn't know that. I know about Courtney Love. I only know about him really in connection with her. And even that is only so much.
Right.
So that's interesting. And like I said, like when I said I don't trust him, I wasn't saying it like in this, that was probably not choosing my words really well. I didn't mean it like anyone, like if they were to listen to this.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't mean it like, hey, this is me telling you not to trust this person. I was more just like I'm talking to you and I'm like, I don't really trust him because of the way he came on.
Yeah.
But
so that might be a wall he puts up too, because protecting yourself as a survivor, and he talks a lot about his abuse stories. That could be a wall that he puts up. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, no, but there's more than that, so there's the whole thing with Courtney Love going way back, but then he's also the whole thing with this Conrad Flynn thing I told you is just sort of sus to me. But then there's more. Like he's with a bunch of like Satanist occult people in.
He's been they talked a lot about
relatively. Manson. That's not good in recent times. I mean, if you're a survivor or there's a way to explain it from the past, that's different. But I mean, he's been really into that contemporary, and then he's also with this Conrad Flynn, who's also coming across as like, I'm going to be like the Hollywood whisperer for all of these things all of a sudden. But he doesn't know jack compared to my friend that's a researcher, Dana, our friend, who was looking in the backgrounds of both of them, and it's suspicious. I mean, these people, and I don't mean that. Yeah. I mean that in the sense that they could be innocent and unknowingly infiltrated in ways, but even so, it doesn't mean I don't trust.
I mean, it could be.
They could be They could be like awesome people that are being used by other people that know more about it, and I mean, it could be anything.
It's very strange when someone gets platformed quickly. Right.
Somebody gets I wonder why. Why them? Why now? Why instead of somebody else? Just, I mean, I think I ask that all the time. Like Britney Spears gets a DUI. Huh? Why? I mean, I don't think like, what was she doing drinking and driving? I'm thinking like, why now? What's the deal? Was she going to say something, or is there something going on? I don't know. Is she in trouble?
In terms
or
of
she in trouble because she was going to say something?
Well, right. And so, like, if you connect dots on her, like, there was some interesting discussions about Kevin's book last year, was it? And then her book, and then Justin Timberlake's video gets released, even though he questioned them trying not to get his DUI video released, and it goes over the whole world talking about his DUI video, and then all of a sudden, in like the same month, maybe week, Britney Spears is in the news for getting a DUI. And the first responses, if you read under some comments where it was like, I don't know who's a friend of hers or not, but they were posts that looked like they knew what they were talking about, saying like, you were following her, we saw this and blah, 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 and all these things. That's targeting abuse. So if we're thinking about TIs, and we think that she is one, it's really hard not to see her as a monarch TI, like slave who's been used in this conservatorship. Well, and then you've got the media just presenting like, oh, Justin Timberlake's trending again with this bad news. We have to get this out of the news. Let's throw Britney up. So then they throw Britney up. And you know what started right after? And this is I really hate dredging this up, but like, right after Britney got her DUI, Melissa Joan Hart was in a lot of news. She was on podcasts. She was talking about something she was doing recently. They were showing old podcast clips of hers. And it started trending again that she was the person that brought Britney to her first party. Britney was underage, and they were child actors together. And she was older, and so she brought her to her first party. And Britney got drunk, and Melissa wanted to leave. And Britney was like, I'm fine. And so that caused a paparazzi smear campaign when Britney was young, and then boom, the whole smear campaign took off from there. And so you've got Britney's in the news being dredged for her reputation. Oh, she's an awful person. Look at how she can't take care of herself and all this stuff. And meanwhile, you've got Kevin who abused her and Justin who abused her. And I'm not saying anything bad about Melissa Joan Hart. I'm just saying that that's not a fun story that I'd be bragging about. And then all of a sudden, they're all doing really, really well.
Right.
And Britney's like being dredged again, even though she's making money and she's creative and she's given her testimony that she was under a conservatorship. So why aren't we listening to that? Why are we listening to the media that's showcasing this in order and all these things, and not putting the puzzle pieces together that somebody's controlling these people, making a lot of profit off of it, and that's not cool.
Well, if anyone in the world is a targeted individual, it's got to be her. I mean, if targeted individuals are a thing, then, broadly speaking, then she's one of them, because, I mean, so many things are wrapped up in her. And I don't even know that she was under the influence, as it turns out. But even if she were, then to me, for me anyway, the first story and the first thought out of it is she's not okay, like what's going on? Because, I mean, I think there's a pretty good understanding that this is a person who's been put through a lot and unfairly so, even for people who don't know a whole lot about it. But before I forget, I wanted to mention something. So I haven't seen it all. I wasn't even aware of the interview that you're talking about with Billy Corrigan and Courtney Love. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that right at the start, she was pointing out, either jokingly or seriously, maybe seriously, about the Freemason stuff and all of that. Well, what it reminded me of is one of my favorite things about her is that she was by far the first public whistleblower of Harvey Weinstein. And it was it was so many years before everyone else. I've posted about it.
She mentioned something about that where she said, I wouldn't, like 2004 or something, right? And she's like,
That's what I was thinking. It was something like that.
A newcomer to Hollywood, go to Harvey Weinstein's hotel room if he says to, or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. And she did that so many years before anyone else. Yeah, I think it was
and before she said it, she goes, "Oh, I shouldn't say this. I'm going to say it," or something like that.
Exactly. So and did that turn out to be true?
Well, so put that together with stories. It was true. And then you've got, who was it that just recently named, I think it might have been Fiona Barnett. I might be wrong on this, but I think she named people like Meryl Streep and things like that, and how those names are not talked about very often, but they're complicit. And those people literally stood on stage and was like, "Oh, the god Harvey Weinstein," for years. Oprah literally thought Harvey Weinstein hung the moon for a long time. So you think about who praised him in public, who reprimanded him, and how they're doing now and what their reputation is, and what the people who praised him in public are alleged of being involved in, because obviously none of them are in jail with crimes. So we don't know. But it's just an interesting circle.
You're right. Yeah, at some of the awards ceremonies, when Miramax and Harvey Weinstein were at their peak, there were certain people who, looking back on it, were especially, effusive in their praise of him. Where looking back now, it's really curious, especially when they're the same people who come up in a lot of other accounts, that maybe can't be proven, but taken together are a lot of circumstantial evidence about certain people. And so Meryl Streep would be one like that. And, Nicole Kidman, others. And, it's a heck of a thing because
Nicole Kidman is just that's an interesting story. Everybody needs to hear Fiona's story and talks about. Nicole's dad.
And you know what? That's a perfect example, too, of something where, so Fiona Barnett's testimony is so incredible that I think I think anyone could be excused for hearing it the first time and going like, you know what? That's too much. I don't know that I can believe that. But if you listen to her and you listen to it over time and then look at other people, I think she's demonstrated and produced more than enough to have gotten to the point that this is someone who should be heard, not necessarily believed. You should hear, and I don't think she asks for more than that for what it's worth. You know, she gives her, like what we've been talking about a lot, her firsthand account of what happened. And her firsthand account of what happened is wild. And it includes people in Australia like Nicole Kidman, which is super interesting for lots of reasons, like the movies she's appeared in, like one in particular, and then also who her dad is, which I wasn't really aware of, but is a prominent psychologist who was associated with the very first, they'll call them CIA doctors or the CIA psychologists, who was trained by, I think, Martin Orne early. So started the program in Australia. So she's
that's a deep dive, because a lot of people, when Gate started trending again, it goes on cycles. They talked about a lot of American projects and things like that, and they were so shocked to find out that this stuff happened in other countries. And of course, it happened in other countries. They were happening in similar time frames in different regions for different purposes. Some were the same programs, just in different people.
Right. That reminds me of another thing too. So I think, like I said, I think Courtney Love is really smart. Which I think would surprise people. But if you listen to her, I think it comes across. And if that's true, then that's like 10 times as true for Fiona Barnett. I mean, she's brilliant. Whether you think she's right or wrong, very intelligent. She also published a book, and which she makes free. You can download it, you can read it. And if you do read it, you might not believe it, or you might come to believe parts of it, whatever. But it won't come across as written by someone other than somebody who's very intelligent, who's trying to put across information in a way that can be understood.
And that she thinks is important. It's not just a story, and it's not just trying to push a narrative. You can tell by the writing this was lived.
For sure. And then not only that, I mean, I think at this point, there's a lot more people are aware of Isaac Cappy and what he was talking about in like 2018, 2019. So more people know about him, and people who were aware, I think there's a better appreciation for what he was talking about, like with the Epstein files and more. Well, he was in Australia with Fiona Barnett right before he was, he died.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just watched that interview with Agent X11 and her on there talking about that a little bit. And that was interesting. Fiona has such a great story. I think everybody should read her book. There's a few, we've named them. Bryce Taylor's book, which is hard to find. I think that's a really good one to read. So it's interesting because the survivor stories that tell all this stuff, they all kind of have similarities in the sense of, like, I don't think they were colluding together. So how did all of these stories get told on such a detailed basis that you could in any way, shape, or form read them and not believe that something exists like this? And I think a lot of people get hung up on the satanic version of satanic ritual abuse, and that's why that Ram Koa came in, I want to say in the late 90s, early 2000s or something, because a lot of psychiatrists were finding that people like Fiona's story, people like Kathy O'Brien's story, there were other survivors that were coming in and having these similar patterns of abuse, story memories, and things coming out. What are you going to call it? Like, it all matches up and they have dots. So I think the fact that we can talk about it and discuss it and research it is good, but there's a very big stigma on being able to believe it. You brought up Elizabeth Loftus, and there's that whole false memory situation, and just a lot of discussion around the confusion of the nut of it, right? Like you can't get to the nut, and then that's confused too. And so I think that's where I would love to be able to build bridges that make things easier to understand, make things easier to voice somebody's story so that it is easier to understand.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And so we talked about it a little bit earlier. And I think one way to do it is to, I think a lot of, and I think this is true for everyone, for all of us, to some extent or another. And I really tried to not do it. And that is to take a side or a position, and then argue for that and against anything that, contradicts it, as opposed to trying to, start like sometimes I think of it as like, I'll try to start everyone at 100. I'll say, I'm going to start everyone at like, they're telling me the truth. They have good intentions. This represents their experience, knowing that not everyone's honest. And even people who are honest are going to be honestly telling something that they misremember or that they only have partial facts about. So these things are all true. And then, I can adjust things over time based on what I learn. We also talk about like putting together puzzles, like puzzles of just what's going on in the world. And then also personally, what my life can be thought of as a puzzle and how do I make it make sense,
Right.
And these things can be done over time.
That is,
but
that's a very good point.
These story, I think it's much better to look at it that way. There's lots of ways. So like as a puzzle, or you could think of it as like a crime. Like a lot of people like to watch or read detective stories, like what happened, or true crime or things like that. Well, I mean, it's the same thing, like this is something I'm trying to figure out what makes sense. And so some of these stories, I mean, I think that they reinforce each other. They kind of help validate each other. Or another way of looking at it is like an elephant. If everyone's just seeing like a small part of it, it's going to look like a different animal to everybody, depending on where they are. But if you put it all together, you can make sense of the whole thing. And so I think a lot of it is like that as well. So if that's the case, there's some really bad people that are running stuff, that want to keep running it, that are making money and want to keep making money, that want to control what they control, and they don't want to go to jail, and they don't want to lose their power, and they don't want to lose the things that they have. Again, they like the Epstein files in case, a really good example of that. So then, if all of that's true, then those people are going to be trying to stop people from doing that. So they're going to be running the opposite stuff. They're going to be trying to keep people isolated from each other. They're going to try and keep testimonies locked up. Like I said, like mine has been really diminished and deleted. And that's just me. Someone like Bryce Taylor, you can barely get her book. If you can find it, it's hard to read because of the way it's published. And in it, of them all, I mean, I think it's, for me, now this is partly because I'm in Southern California as she was. And so a lot of what she talks about is directly related to the things. So like, for instance, she has an entire chapter about my alma mater where I went to school. And then she talks a whole lot about the other place I went to school, the law school. So I'm interested for that. But I mean, I think she's foundational, like absolutely foundational, even more than Kathy O'Brien. But we don't get to hear from her. And I think there's a lot of people that want to keep it that way. So yeah. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and it's a really interesting point. A lot of people want to control the narrative, and we don't know what that's going to look a lot like help to a lot of people. And I think that's very dangerous. It seems like there's some situations going on. I'd like to bring awareness to the Kelly O'Brien situation, but that's a hotbed of danger. So I would just like people to remember Kelly O'Brien's name and research it and search it up on.
But so even that. So Kelly is it Kelly O'Brien Cox or Kelly Cox O'Brien?
I think she goes by Kelly Cox O'Brien, and then it's at right and right.
Okay, so that person, because there's two Kellys, right? So there's the survivor that a lot of people will be familiar with, Kathy O'Brien. You know, I mean, a real hero, and someone who's pretty well known, at least in the community we're talking about. And then she had a daughter, or has a daughter, named Kelly, except for there's two people who claim to be Kelly. There's one who appears with her, at least at times, at events she speaks at. And then there's another person who says she's the real Kelly. And so the thing about that, so that's all I think true as far as it goes. There's two people who claim to be Kelly. There's Kathy O'Brien, and there's what she thinks. And then we have this situation. But it's hard to impossible to even talk about the subject. And why should that be the case? I mean, there's a whole lot going on. I mean, just at face value, you have arguably the most prominent, well-known speaker in the United States on high stakes, high level, they call it presidential, monarch, trauma-based abuse, who's speaking. And it's really exciting for a lot of people because, you know, it's getting some attention. And then you have this case where there's two people who claim to be the daughter, or there's one person who claims to be the daughter, and there's another person who's being presented as the daughter, but you can't talk to her.
Well, that's where it got a little bit concerning, because the person that is, I guess, claiming to be the daughter at the events wasn't public at all, ever, until the X account came out as Kelly and requested a conversation with Kathy, and then Kathy blocked that account and then started slandering it as wrong, and then a person started showing up at the events as Kelly. Right. And so it's very concerning, because who is that person? And who is this person if it's not Kelly? But I don't understand how it couldn't be, given some of the information this person has that match up with the stories that isn't publicly available. So, I mean, from the general public of, we are concerned, and some of us are survivors and we are concerned about survivors, it would be nice to have a conversation about that. And it's a very hotbed discussion topic we're not allowed to very much even bring up, because how dare we question that? Kelly's doing fine, and she's right here in a field, happy and go lucky, healing. And I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, why can't we? I mean, I guess the reasons to not talk about that, to be fair, or to try to be as fair as possible, would be, if you take it from the perspective of most sympathetic to Kathy O'Brien, I think it would be something like, she's been through so much, and how can you do that? Like, how could you bring that up? It would, I mean, how can you do that to a survivor like that? So something like that would be. But then on the other hand, she's speaking about things that nobody's able to speak about. So again, like, how does she get this platform? She's speaking at big events where people are paying money. She's also selling books that people are buying with money. It's a big enough operation to where the book is translated into, like, I think a dozen or more languages. She has some sort of infrastructure that's managing her social media, that's handling the book publishing and sales, that's doing all of this. And it's all in an area where we talk about sophisticated psychology. Intelligence agencies will be very interested in anything that she's saying, since she's a whistleblower.
Right. Well, and
And
that's
it's
like,
in the area that we talk about handlers. So
right.
is she still being handled? Is she being reprogrammed? Or if she's not, then how do we know that she's not? Not to be like
Right.
somebody questioning it, but just to be in the real world. And like, let's just say for a moment that the person that's claiming to be her real daughter is her real daughter. Well, then how are you helping Kathy O'Brien, the survivor, by allowing her to be duped? How
Right.
does that help her?
Right.
And that doesn't even count things like Bryce Taylor and what she said about Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips and her concerns about that, which people could read, but nobody's buying her book.
Well, right, and the copy I saw was like $50, and she has another book I think that she wrote before the Bob Hope one, the Thanks for the Memories, but I can't find that anywhere
That one's,
to get.
I haven't even been able to find that, and I've been looking for it. Yeah, it's
Right.
Starshine. So
Well, what's interesting about that too, to
Mhm.
bring it back to full circle with Kathy, is that I was given a copy of Kathy's book, so it's not, and I've bought others, so now I've bought them. So I feel bad. I had a pirated version of Kathy's book. And that was how I was introduced to her, is, hey, read this. And so
Right.
I read it, and it was shocking. And this was a decade ago at least. And so it was shocking. And then, but all of her books have a similar, like they're very shocking, and they're very told in a this is the way that it happened scenario. And it's been very awakening for me, because it's not told in what seems to be a Hollywood narrative. It doesn't come off very edited together. It just comes off as very spit out. And so to me, it was very like my first opening awakening of like, this is a big deal. And a lot of her puzzle pieces that she talked about were very much like eye openers to like, that's that memory that I had. And that's a very intriguing way to describe that. That's interesting. So it wasn't like I immediately trusted everything that she said, but from this one book, I was like, that's a lot of dots I have in common with this very disturbing story. That's interesting. So it was eye-opening, right? And then you've got Bryce Taylor's book that I can't even find. So how am I supposed to notice if any of her story is available, right? But the point would be that, like, why is one survivor able to be elevated but won't, like, she seems great, and we were on a podcast with her. She seems welcoming and very able to talk to everybody, and she's knowledgeable, and she opens up about these topics and these things that she went through. And so it would be very difficult for me to understand how that person would not even be like, well, if you say you're Kelly, let's have a conversation, because you're probably hurting survivor. Like, let's help you out. But it was an immediate mean and block, and that just seemed out of character. And so that's where I'm weighing things together. And I don't think a lot of people know the story about Kathy, Mark, and then Bryce's version of those things together.
So I haven't read Kathy O'Brien's book, actually.
She has a lot of them. They're valuable information.
Yeah, no. I'm sure, but I mean, I've listened to her, and I think I've read excerpts of it. So, but since you read it, what if anything does she say about Bryce Taylor?
I don't remember, and she might,
she
and I could
say
be
anything?
wrong, but I don't remember that. I remember speaking engagements maybe that were brought up with Bryce Taylor and things.
Because I've never seen, read, heard anything. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So. It's just I haven't heard it. But Bryce Taylor wrote about Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, and with a lot of specificity, which included things like paying for them to travel and doing stuff, and Mark Phillips like reading all of her manuscripts and things like that. And they were contemporary. Their stories validate each other in a lot of ways, but they, that's if, but maybe they validate each other a little bit too much. And if that's the case, I don't know that that's the case, but I know which one came first. So all of that is very interesting as well, because you got the one who came first, who was validated by the retired former head of the FBI in Southern California, which was Ted Gunderson. Important that it was Southern California, because that's the exact place where Bryce Taylor, wrote about and where she was. They together talked about things like McBarton and other things. So, they're both on the record. So this is a survivor on the record with the former head of the FBI talking about these things. And William Bowert, I think that's how you say his name, wrote the introduction to her book. And he himself wrote the first book about MK Ultra in 1978 called Operation Mind Control, which was right after the church hearings. And so you have like these foundational people, early people with high status. And then you have that survivor who is completely taken off of the table. And then you have Kathy O'Brien, who has a very similar story where they should be validating each other, but there isn't much said about it. And then there's more too, like Fiona Barnett, will always point to Bryce Taylor, as I understand it, as an original whistleblower.
Right.
I mean, when she talks about like people want me to name more names, she's like, why should I name more names? Bryce Taylor named everyone first, and we're still here.
Right.
And she did, so.
No, that's a really good point. And that's where it's a little bit frustrating to circle it around and tie this up until next time when we have our avatars.
Right. Avatars.
But, I think
maps.
the survivor, it's interesting. And when the Epstein files woke a lot of people up and they're interested true crime wise. But I mean, if we could get to the point where we're researching and then connecting dots to the public so that we can then make solutions happen, that would be much more beneficial, I think, than us just like trending topics of problems and then they continue on for more decades. We're looking at stories that were written in 99, 95, 78, 63, like stuff like that. We're still here in 2026 talking about it. Nothing is changing. I want to move forward towards change.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, I guess I would, we're getting at the end. I would hope that people would, if they were to look at this, and just evaluate or kind of consider what we're talking about. We talked about a lot of people, Kathy O'Brien, Bryce Taylor, Courtney Love, Billy Corrigan, and a bunch of other people. But I don't think in any of them we said like, this is a bad person, this is a good person, this is who you should believe, this is somebody you shouldn't listen to. It's sort of like, these are all people that are sort of in the mix. And I mean, there's many, many, many others, that we didn't mention. I mean, there's more like Elizabeth Loftus, lots of people. And so,
where does it all fit in?
Yeah. What's a good method for discussing things like this and trying to figure it out and get to a better understanding of the truth of things, as opposed to, I'm on this team, I'm on this side, you're right. I'm with you. These people are wrong. Yeah. Trust me. Don't listen to them. Is not a good approach. It's much better to say, like, here are a bunch of things being discussed. And what do you think about it? What about the two Kelly O'Briens? What about Courtney Love mentioning, Freemasonry with Billy Corrigan? The guy that wrote the bass
with a side eye.
When it sounded just like the way she, blew the whistle on Harvey Weinstein way before everyone else. And Billy Corrigan, by the way, is the one who wrote the bass line on her most popular song.
Oh, okay. I knew they had some collaboration.
Celebrity Skin. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this will give you an idea, because Billy Corrigan's a smart guy too.
Super intelligent.
And I say that because you can hear them talk. It comes across. But like she was adamant. Like, he wrote the riff. She said, but I wrote the lyrics, every word, which is like what somebody who is, who it matters to would say. Because a lot of people, they'll have like 10 writers on their songs and they don't care as long as,
Yeah.
gets played and
Yeah.
and the check's clear, right? But an artist, that cares about words will care very much that that I wrote this, not somebody else.
And what it means and who wrote it from what perspective, and that there's a lot of hurt in a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the stories and things that they went through. And the public persona of them and others, we're talking about a lot of celebrities here. So like even any of the we get the personified version that the media presents, and we don't understand a lot the depth behind the lyrics or the bass line or what went into the book writing or whatever it is. And there's a lot to that, it's interesting. It's not an easy thing to be in the celebrity public culture. I can't imagine being that high up and having no privacy at all, and then having to deal with this level of abuse and heal that publicly while people are watching it and everything that you do wrong or right. That can't be good
there's
either.
all kinds of people. I was even thinking of Britney Spears, how smart and how good she is. One way that is if you want to listen to the 22 minutes straight monologue she got out in LA Superior Court.
Yes.
She
Everybody should listen to that.
That was so brave. That was so brave, and it was so smart. And talk about someone they don't want you to hear. And look at how she's characterized. She's presented as just like as somebody different from what she really was. So there's
it's problematic, but that's exactly why I think that's why marketing is mind control. I think that concept needs to be way more common that we're thinking about it, because even I fall for it. They'll put a trend here and a trend here and a trend here, and all of a sudden that's trending, so that's common.
Right.
No,
which
that's
is your
strategy.
book, marketing is mind control is your book.
Yeah, thanks for reading it. I appreciate it.
I read, which is really good. Maybe that's something too. We should just take parts of it and read a little bit and talk about it.
Just read some excerpts or something. I actually just launched. I'll cut this part out, but I just launched the print version, which I put some extra stuff at the end and like some cheat sheets, so that like we were talking about tools for survivors. The idea is that if you want to do a podcast or have a landscape business or whatever you're doing and you want to market it, you're not falling victim to these scams of how to market your business in 30 days straight,
right.
It's ridiculous.
Well, and it's also a way, if you look at it the other way, it's a way into understanding mind control too. Almost like mind control is marketing, or, mind control is a consequence of marketing. Because so often we're not thinking about, like in the survivor community, we're not primarily thinking about marketing. We're thinking about mind control, but they, it's implicit in the title. You don't say marketing leads to mind control. It is. You could say mind control is my new book is my new book is Mind Control is Marketing, and it's the exact same book in reverse. It's just I reversed the chapters. Decoded. It's the same book. Yeah.
It's an interesting situation though, because you don't want to fall for it, but you're part of it every day.
Yeah. So hey, so if we're like kind of at the end then, which is probably good.
You got more you want to?
Oh no, you can record everything. Might as well just record it. I don't think it'll be useful, but maybe it will be. I was thinking, next thing I'm going to do now is, look at the character animator and some of the other stuff, just like how to make it look a little bit better. Because it looks decent right now as it is. My messed up tooth, like right there. Oh, it's driving me crazy. I'm hoping that's fixed tomorrow. I might.
Yeah. We definitely got to get that.
Is that backwards?
Nope, Tuesday, 2 p.m.
It just appears backwards to me. So that's my, here.
That's funny.
Roger Uchizono. He retired.
Oh,
He's the dentist. He's the dentist that knows, this is how it goes, like knows my kids and all of that,
Yeah. Yeah, that's an intriguing
who,
discussion. The dentists that were in the stories and stuff like
yeah,
that.
who went to USC, who's chapter 24, and now his nephew runs it, and he went to UCLA, which is chapter 30. Bryce Taylor's book, man, that thing.
To be
I mean,
required reading.
the stuff she talks about. I mean, she talks about Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips and how they were living together and then moved to, I think, Mark Phillips' parents' house or something in Alabama to be safe, but then she realized it wasn't safe and all of this different things going on. I mean,
yeah, Kathy talks about that too. It'd be interesting to see it from both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and I really do think Kathy O'Brien is a victim. I don't think
Right.
she's like just some grifter who came along and made up this incredible lifetime story of what happened. I mean, it happened. I'm sure it happened, but I don't trust Mark Phillips. All of it's sketchy. Like, I didn't even know about like the hooking up early and all of that. That's like such a not a thing not to do. I mean,
yeah, it's her love story. I feel bad saying anything about it. It just felt wrong when she was talking about all of that. And then I had bought the audiobook, so I was listening to it, and I'm like, it was very early on in her healing journey that they got into a relationship. And I know, that's just not, it didn't fit properly.
No, it's not right. And it's not her being bad. It's her being taken advantage of by someone who, like, imagine Allie telling a story that sounded like that. You'd be like, what the hell?
Well, right. I'd be like, hey, so Shelly, are we sure do we like this guy? I'd be like, I don't understand why we're doing this. Like, this doesn't make sense. So, like, as a friend, I would have said those things. And, I mean, she didn't have friends. I understand. And I'm not judging. I don't understand. I don't know. And, the way that it's described in the audiobook when she reads it, it's such a love story. It's such a sweet love story, and they go intricately with details, and I just felt uncomfortable the whole time. It never felt like this is something that a sex slave survivor should be doing that soon into deprogramming. But I don't want to judge, and if she says love healed her, then who am I to say any different? Like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Sue Ford says she's Esther or Ellen Ford. Ellen or Esther?
I think it's Esther.
Yeah, I think so, which is a biblical name. It's an important biblical name.
Well, they use it a lot in Eastern Star, too.
And so she has her own, healing story now, which I don't think is, I think do you really think, they're trying to block out, think about the effort that's going into, like, blocking out stuff in the Epstein files.
Yeah.
So then they're going to go to that effort to do that, but just like Kathy O'Brien, just talk about everything, like, without being concerned about it.
That's a piece that I haven't been able to wrestle with, because when the elections were going on, it was made aware that she knew, I think, our borders are. I don't want to name names if I'm wrong, but I think she knew one of the people that was, being appointed or being in government really close, right? And so I remember a conversation that she had about, it's really good that we've got good people in office. They know what's going on. If he knew her story, if anybody who's in office today, and even Susie Wiles, who's like right hand of president or something today, was right hand of President Reagan and was in the administrative duties of Reagan when Kathy O'Brien was going through what she was going through. And while Megan Walsh was being presented to Reagan, Susie Wiles was there. So I'm just supposed to imagine that somebody who's been that close to that many things for so long has no clue that this MK Ultra project exists. When you're the right hand, you're scheduling the travel arrangements and things sometimes. Like, what's going on of these inside situations. I just don't understand. And so it's, when Kathy said that she knew these people who are going to be in office, I'm like, yay, that's great. And I really felt like it was great. And then I started thinking about it. It's very concerning because nothing has changed. Nothing has happened. Nobody's been held accountable.
It doesn't make sense. Then you have to
Why
be
are
like,
they there?
Right. So could you imagine, like, Bryce Taylor when she was a public, whistleblower? or Fiona Barnett now saying the same thing about anything. They would be.
It wouldn't resonate.
I can't even imagine it. They would be talking about the Epstein victims. They would be talking about the things they were talking about. They'd be talking about the same things. They'd be talking about all the daycares and the stuff going on in schools. And, like, why the heck is it still going on?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be talking about, like, well, we got some good people in here.
And that's why it just didn't make sense. After hearing her voice read her books and things, it just doesn't seem, something is wrong with the fact that she won't even have a conversation with Kelly. So I just want to make sure that Kathy's okay, and I don't like the fact that Kelly is silenced and has to have her profile locked down because, she has no support and she gets attacked.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is, say Kelly Cox O'Brien is wrong, just say. Then from Kathy O'Brien's perspective, you would want to help somebody like that if you could, to understand the fact that what they're deluded about is not in fact true.
I believe she just called it a psyop and moved on, like a fake bot account.
Okay, so let's say I'm in Kathy O'Brien's inner circle, let's just say, and that I believe that she's a real victim, which I do, and that I'm glad that she's out there getting, that she has more of a platform than she's ever had. So, I mean, all of this is to the good, right? And I'm in there and I'm aware of Kelly, which I would have to be, because if I'm not aware of that, then I'm not good at what I'm doing. I shouldn't be doing it. Somebody else should be doing it. I have to be aware of that.
Right.
So then if all of that's true and Kathy won't or can't deal with it, then I got to deal with that. One way or another, I have to deal with that. I got to reach out and say, hey, look, I'm really sorry. Well, whatever it is, I'm really sorry. Or maybe I'm not so sorry. But I mean, I would think there would be a lot of sympathy. What you think is true, it isn't true. And
right.
Because I know that. And if I don't know that, then I got to take a little bit different approach. What are we going to do?
Well, and what would happen if they had a conversation? Why would the block be the immediate situation? That's where there's a red flag, and it worries me about Kathy's survival, or safety,
for sure.
I guess. But I mean, it's interesting because I think, who Kelly's father is not he's not a safe man. He was a very dangerous man, and she talks about it a lot in the books, but you can't research it. So when we talk about marketing as mind control, SEO is super controllable, and you can't research anything that's important. And the wrong people come up all the time. Megan Walsh talks about this. When you search her name, 3 people that are having drama with child situations pop up, and none of them are her. And so people will immediately see. Exactly. They immediately see a Megan Walsh that's having trouble with a drama of a child situation and a DUI, and they write it off as she's crazy. That's not her. She's not from Canada. That's not the Megan we're talking about. But they can't go past a quick Google search. And so I think that's where a lot of this stuff hides, and it's very dangerous. But for the survivor, how's Kelly going to get support when her mom won't have a conversation with her? And so that's where it needs to be justified in my head, is I believe them both, and they're both survivors on telling their stories, and now I'm in the middle as a public carer, I guess is the only way to say it, and I don't know what to do. I believe them both. I don't know how to help if I believe them both and there's a wall, and I think a lot of people feel that way. And because of Kathy's story and the elevation aspect of it, we're not allowed to question. And I don't want to question her. I want to question, is she okay? Is she safe?
Yeah, which is what I was thinking of when I'm thinking about. So, we started earlier today talking about maybe just talking about it, 2 people talking about it is a way to do stuff that has been frustrating and not available to us for lots of reasons.
Right.
And I mean, I think that's an example of it. Like, maybe she is, because of what she's gone through, a lifetime of it, in what she represents to a lot of people, like she really can't be questioned directly in that way fairly. That's not the same thing as wondering and asking questions about it, where you have, I mean, like, say you have three people. You have, I mean, it feels like it's two, to be honest, but you have three people. You have Kathy O'Brien, and then you have these two people that,
right,
which is her daughter, which is the real Kelly, and what's going on. Well, it's not attacking. It doesn't have to be attacking Kathy O'Brien to say what's going on. And because if Kelly's her daughter, then it's a real disservice to just pretend like it's not there, or it's not, there aren't odd things about it.
Well,
and we should be able to talk about that, even if we're not talking about, maybe it's not who's handling Kathy O'Brien and keeping her away from her daughter, even if we think that's the likely thing. It could be what's going on here, where you have a prominent survivor who finally has a platform, and then you have somebody else who thinks she's her daughter and is in bad shape.
Right.
And again, she's a very smart person. You can't look at Kelly O'Brien and read what she's talking about and say, like, this is an unintelligent person. She's just not.
She's so intelligent. She matches up with what Kathy talked about in the stories. It matches, and her knowledge of it, her discussions and things that she has posted. So I had no understanding that it wasn't Kelly until there was a giant to do and Kathy blocked her, and it caused a situation. And then I was like, hold on.
Right.
And then if you look at the pieces of the puzzle, well, a grifter and this and that and the other, and why would somebody want to do that? I mean, Kelly's not asking for anything. She wants a conversation. So what would that do? And you have to, in terms of, you have to think like when Allie Carter talks about, the codes that someone has purchased and that, that kind of thing. Like, we wouldn't want somebody to purchase those and do that to Kathy. So, I mean, if an imposter was trying to do that, but it doesn't come off that way with the evidence that Kelly has and what she's saying and stuff. And so it's just, why can't we have the question? And that's where if we're not allowed to question, if we're not allowed to talk and have thought process, how are we ever going to get to a solution? I mean, I know people that saw Kathy speak in the 90s, and we're here today in 2026, and people still don't know that her story is a thing. We don't have solutions happening. We don't have any laws changed. We don't have any justice for anybody that was named in there.
Right.
So,
well, also, if you think of it like, well, Kathy O'Brien and Bryce Taylor, for instance, and Fiona Barnett, like, just take those three. Say, like, well, those are all dangerous stories. So what are we going to do about it? Well, one thing you could do is, like, capture someone like Bryce Taylor and, have her think she's somebody else and saved in this other movement way out on some weird place. And that problem solved, right? So it's not really her.
Well, that's part of the playbook. Make people look mental immediately.
Yeah. Or like Fiona Barnett, I mean, they're just after her, obviously, in a big way. Or like Kathy O'Brien, like a third approach. Yeah, actually platform her, make sure that certain things aren't talked about. And the rest of it, it's already out there. Most people won't hear it or believe it if they do. Some people will. Just make sure it's limited disclosure. We got to, like, get this stuff out, dribble it out over time anyway. So if she can be handled and managed, then, we'll just put her with that whole other group of, patriots and whatever, and they'll talk about stuff, and, they'll say a lot of things that are true, and it'll resonate with a lot of people that are upset with what's happening with the country. And it'll be a lot of red meat for them. And they can, really get going, and they can do stuff, and they might even get some stuff done. but, at least we'll be controlling it, I mean, as
The
opposed to
control
trying
of
to
the
fight the
narrative.
truth. Yeah, instead of fighting the truth, we're just going to, wrangle it and kind of manage it until we can steer it off the cliff.
Well, right. And the way John Kiriko talks about with the CIA being able to utilize technology in cars or TVs or whatever and, watch you or hurt you, it really does put a targeted individual on edge, because the stories that these, that everybody is whistleblowing, you're safe because you're public. So Kathy's safe because she talks. Kelly's safe because she talks. You're safer because you talk. And when someone tries to discredit, when someone says you're not true, those are very damaging attacks. And that's not just, I like to call it, it's not just a Twitter battle. It's not just, a social beef war. It's like a legitimate reputation attack. And when you attack somebody's reputation, it's so that you can harm them and destroy them. And I don't think that that's a good thing to do in a survivor movement. And so that's why, celebrities, I don't hold a lot of, I don't know them. So when I talk about it, it's only I don't like this person, but I don't know them. So I don't like what's been shown to me, And then when I watch a lot of their stuff and I see them talk in a lot of unfiltered, that looks like unfiltered ways, and I hear survivor stories, I have a really hard time holding them accountable as a celebrity who I don't know anymore, because now I've heard they've got a survivor story. So maybe that is even being controlled, and they're putting all these survivor stories public now, so it's washed. Everybody's got one. You've got one, you've got one, you've got one. And nobody will believe it anymore, and it doesn't matter, and we move on to a new trend, and no justice is served. And I don't want that to happen. These stories are important. They have pieces. You talked about the puzzle. If you have a puzzle piece and Courtney Love has a puzzle piece, and we can put them together, and then you can spot which ones are not made to be here. It doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the picture. But we're not allowed to discuss our puzzle.
Well, I mean, I think they're all, if they're relevant, they're all pieces that fit somewhere. They just might fit on the part of the puzzle that's the problem, too.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then with celebrities, I think a lot of times, I think most people, and what we're programmed to do is to think of them as people, to identify with them, and then usually to idolize them, that kind of thing. But another way of looking at it is that's true. They're human beings, they're people, but they also are proxies for other things or bigger things, or they stand for or represent something that was trying to be done. So you could also look at them as just a tool, maybe a super important one, a part of, if you think of Stranger Things. So, and then there's celebrities, kids that were a part of making that, but each one, and then all of them together, were used to put across certain ideas. And then that could be the idea that we want to tell a story and make money. It could also be we want to, put ideas about MK Ultra in such a way that where it's a narrative that when people think about it, or if they learn more about it, that will be a reference point. And because we have the reference point, then we can use it to put it in certain ways that we want. Well, then, so what does that make the kids, the actors? Well, they were human beings, but they were also a proxy for something also big, which itself is kind of like a puzzle piece or part of a story or something else. So Millie Bobby Brown or something. So there's a whole lot there, right? But one of the things is that was a particular person that was used to play a particular role that was meant to stand in place for our understanding of what it would be like to be a child who was programmed, and what it would be like. And that might have a lot of truth to it, but it might be different from, say, Courtney Love, if you believe her, someone that was, administered LSD as a toddler. Well, that's not what I'm thinking when I'm thinking Stranger Things.
Well, right, and that was a lot of what they did in those experiments in those rooms in Stranger Things, and a lot of that resonated with so many survivors as a story that was similar to their memories.
Yeah, no.
And then when you think of Elizabeth Loftus' study of Lost in a Mall, and can we implant a memory about being lost in a mall to see if you could implant a sexual assault memory, and then in the same time frame that you've got Stranger Things trending again and their whole mall world that they had in that Starcourt, the mall world dreams started popping up with the gate community on all these social media platforms, and everybody's like, I was a gate kid and I remember going to a world that was like a mall in my dreams. What was that? And now thousands, millions of people remember the same thing. How's that all trending in the same year? Like, how does that all come about in the same time frame?
I'm not really aware of that too much.
It'd be another topic. We'll dive in another day.
Yeah, I mean, at least not the mall world stuff. I mean, I'm aware of malls being important, and it's actually important out here because of, like, talk about other topics.
Like Les Wexner.
Les Wexner, the Irvine Company, all the malls out here, and then Morgan Stellar Truth, and she has a lot to say about malls also. But when I think of the mall study, I actually, and Elizabeth Loftus in the mall study, I think of Megan Walsh. And Adam Walsh was Lost in the Mall, which is the Lost in the Mall study. And then what do those have to do with each other? And I can't even remember in time which came first, the Adam Walsh or the Lost in the Mall study. But
so Adam Walsh first, and then Lost in the Mall was in the 90s. It's interesting.
Really? Okay. So that's 81 and 90. And then, but before Adam Walsh was the
milk carton.
I can't remember what it's called.
I was going to say that.
Maybe I was going to say the eyewitness. So Elizabeth Loftus did a study on the relative reliability of eyewitness testimony, and so it's a rather famous one. I can't remember what it's called, but that was actually before the Lost in the Mall study, and that's the one. I think that's the main one for which she's considered an expert as far as testifying in court, because there's lots of researchers do studies that would bear on that, but the reason why she got into it, why she was able to make a lot of business about it, was that she'd done a study that showed like that eyewitness testimony wasn't as reliable as people thought it was, and so that's a lot of the reason why she was called as an expert, whether she should have been or not. And in that in itself, there is something to it. It's been shown. I mean, that's been replicated to some extent, that people think that they remember things like videotape, but they don't. Their memory's not quite the same. So you'll see something, you'll be like, I saw it. And sometimes it's not exactly the way that you saw it.
Right.
Yeah, so
that was a lot of what the Lost in the Mall study was really angering people over, because it was kind of traumatic what they told these people, and then these people started having real memories about things that were of a fake story that was implanted.
Yeah, and it was very controversial, and for lots of reasons. But I mean, even that, like, questions could be like, how does that relate to Megan Walsh in that whole story? Because it turns out that Adam Walsh is super important because of it was used as the basis for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It was also used to launch John Walsh's career as a public person with the America's Most Wanted franchise, which itself was essential for establishing Fox as a network. Not Fox News, Fox, the fourth and last American network.
Yeah.
So the fact that she did that study afterwards, was it coincidence? Was it deliberate? Or was it just coincidence, but having been done, it was used because, to cast things in certain ways? I mean, and I actually don't know But those are all things worth considering.
Definitely worth looking into, and I think everybody should read about all of that, because it's hard to get through all of this, and then when they play around with our memories with all these things and advertisements and the Mandela effect situations and like all of these other, I mean, it's
which
ridiculous. So it's really hard to trust your brain anyway,
Yeah, it's actually one of the really good things about books. So people have asked me, like, why don't you write a book? You should write a book. I'm like, no, I'm not going to write a book that nobody's going to read, But, and I still feel that way, actually. But on the other hand, I mean, some of these historic documents, so again, like Bryce Taylor or Fiona Barnett or any number of people, but like Bryce Taylor wrote a book in 1999 where she said, this is what happened, her recollection of it. And then you can say like, well, she was right, she was wrong, she didn't remember it, she did, whatever. But when that thing was published, she's saying this is how it was. And then you can go from there. And going back and reading it, it's an incredible thing. And then when you realize that she talked about her experience, not thinking about, like, for instance, Kathy O'Brien, who's arguably, I mean, I don't even think it's an argument, right? She's the most prominent, like, survivor of that kind of abuse than anyone right now, right?
I would think so. I mean, it depends on what platform people choose to be on, who's more prominent now.
Well, I mean, in terms of like name recognition, book sales, that kind of thing. So she talked about the most prominent person in 2026, so 27 years ago, and what she's talking about is her experience together with her.
Yeah.
The two of them together. Nobody else. There's not another document like that.
Well, and why isn't she on the speaking circuits? Why aren't we, why don't we know her name? So,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, I want these survivors who have put their heart and soul into telling the truth to have some, for the world to see justice so it doesn't happen to other people, but so they, get some thought for their story. And when you see that just tools or YouTube or SEO or psyops are diminishing this from being heard, that's an uphill battle. You've got attention spans, and then you've got to be able to get it into people's attention, and then you've got them to be able to latch onto it because it's so crazy.
Right. Well, like, so for instance, Morgan, like, if I had to pick just one contemporary survivor that I think would hit people in the mainstream, like just smack across the face, it would be her. Even more than Allie Carter, whose story I think is like absolutely essential, without qualification, and in a way unique, especially with Shelley, and it's here. But like one that would be accessible to people, undeniable in a way that nobody else's story is, it would be hers. I mean, pretty privileged upbringing by, normal standards, horrific abuse by even MK Ultra standards, who has it documented in ways that almost nobody does because of her dad's conviction, who's connected directly to Mar-a-Lago. I mean, there's not another story like hers, I don't think, because of the way that it's authenticated. Like, I believe lots of survivors without that. Like, I don't believe her more than Allie, who herself has it documented well, but it's in a way that, like, say my mom, I can say like, like her dad, he was convicted by a jury, and his mentor was the judge, and he was running Trump's campaign for Kentucky, the entire state, in 2016. And he's in jail for 20 years and for human trafficking. And not just that, minors. And they were doing it in the legal system. I mean, you don't go like, well, I'm not going to believe that. I mean, not going to believe what?
Well, you tie
And
that
then
to the knowledge of the case in Kentucky with the judge and the sheriff that shot the judge and the brothel they were running in there, and it's the same state. So there's got to be
yeah,
a problem with the judges and the lawyers in that state. And now
yeah, I
you've
mean
got
it.
those judges and lawyers are known by people in the uppity up, so that's dangerous. Yeah, her story is very big.
Like how a crystal starts, and then everything will crystallize once it has the, the starter. That's how I think of her, because,
Right.
it goes to Epstein, and it goes there right away because that's the thing that was part of her awakening. And she's thinking about Epstein because she's there all the time because her grandparents are at Mar-a-Lago. So I
Right.
mean, it's all just, she connects to the Vatican because she was at the Vatican underground on a school. How do you know? It's on a school trip
Right.
about,
Right. And
she's
yeah.
in Kentucky, but she's still connected to MTV, celebrity, reality TV, music.
Well, she
I
named
mean,
David
all of it.
Duchovny in a pretty terrifying story too, and nobody will mention him in anything other than fantastic. And so it's really
Yeah,
unfortunate.
and
I can't imagine having to live with
and of
that.
all people, because what's he known for? X-Files #1, but if you had to go
And
number two,
Manson,
it might be, huh?
that Manson
Manson.
show he did.
I didn't even. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
She's which she's also connected to Manson in another way. But I was going to
Yeah,
say, and then
Kentucky, right? Yeah.
also Twin Peaks.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
forgot
right?
about that. Oh,
So like you have Morgan, and it goes in every direction. And how was I connected to her? By the Native American who grew up on Catalina Island, who said, when we talk about a random thing, he's like, some guy I don't know says I should follow somebody I don't know, that it's super
right,
important.
right,
I'm like,
right.
okay. I mean, like, one of the reasons why I spend so much time on Cat Spear is because Morgan validates her and the whole SSP
Yeah,
thing. Because
yeah,
otherwise her story is like a bit too much for me. It's too crazy. It's like I can't. And then what's her family? Her dad's a pastor. Her brother's a pastor, like Wendy. You know what I mean? Who was,
right.
husband was a pastor. So, these
Which is
things, they don't.
a
I feel
bad
like I could
network.
talk about it forever,
Well, that
except
goes
for
right
when
back
I'm
to Fiona Barnett because she named Billy Graham, and Tom Oldhouse named Pat Robertson, and
right.
Micah Miller was murdered, allegedly, whatever we want to call it, unfortunate ending by a pastor who had a dad who was a pastor who allegedly had some stories against him as well. So we're looking at like decades of influential pastors in different regions, schools, understandings, knowledge levels of groups of people that they're influencing that were running these rings of sexual abuse allegedly, because none of them are in jail for it that I understand. I mean, Micah's ex-husband JP might be. I'm not sure where he's at in his trial, but
Right.
like when we talk about church abuse, we don't discuss the amount of use of control arm that the religious, what is the coalition, I think is what Tom Althouse calls it, the Christian coalition, and the use of that against
Yeah,
people.
right. And I actually think that, interestingly, I think the Mormons, like the Mormon survivor community, is really good in this regard. But I don't think they are so much in the part of the community that we've been mostly involved in, where there's a lot of like talking about what's wrong with it structurally and how it's similar to the
Mm-hmm.
Catholic Church and some other stuff. That's where I think cults to consciousness and things like that are
Mm-hmm.
so good, because what they're talking
Right.
about is not like how evil Mormonism is and how it's based on Freemasonry and a bunch of other stuff, which is true. What they're talking about a lot of the time is what it was like, especially for the women, what it was like to grow up in a church where you think what we're doing is awesome and we're saving the world,
Normal.
and I have a planet I'm going to go to that's my own.
Yeah.
They believe that. So you don't, you can sit here and go, well, that's crazy, right? But, if you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and that's everything and maybe you're not abused, directly, but you got to get out of there, and you think, but that's everything,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and then that's going to be true
podcast.
that's going to be true for other cults and even the way they talk about it in that community. They talk about it as like high control groups.
Yeah.
They talk about it as cults and high control groups, which is so inclusive. You know what I mean? And it really names the thing. So
is it? So control groups, but that can be anything, like an employer, a church.
They call it high control groups. It's a way to try to make it where it includes. It can include things. It doesn't go so much by the label itself. It will appreciate the fact that people can go to a church and have it be like really fulfilling. It could even be a church that has another branch or goes by the same name, or even in the same place might be different for somebody else, or something that is like, like instead of it being like, that's a cult, that's not a cult. It's more like a way of, so like, for instance, the military definitely falls within that definition, especially the Marine Corps, like from some of the survivors. Like the one that came out of Children of God, and when she finally got free, enrolled in Marines boot camp and became a captain. This woman, she's incredible. She's also a Harvard graduate. Wow, amazing, right? And she just describes it as, I got to the military, I'm in boot camp, and I'm like, oh shit, I just escaped one cult and joined another.
Yeah.
And she stands on that. She's a captain. Retired, but so
that
cult,
if you like living though, a lot of people don't realize that they're living in it because it's the norm.
Right. So, but by defining it in terms like high control group, it's a way of saying, well, in a way, this place here is a high control group.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm outside of. So, anyway,
I think most whistleblowers find themselves controlled by those, and that's why it's so hard to, find a path to survival if you're going to do the right thing and speak up.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah,
it's weird.
All right, I'm going to end this here. I think we'll pick this up with our avatars in the next.
Yeah, would that be cool?